Gillies. A good nod down. And it's there! A tremendous goal by Joe Royal. Well, the crowd go mad, and Tony Gillies there was the mastermind behind that one. Gillies kept his cool and nodded it down, and Joe Royal tucked it away quite beautifully.
The days when Bristol City were playing and beating Liverpool in the First Division. Good evening to you. With us tonight for the start of a new series of Flashback for the fans is the man who virtually made City tick. The man who spent 9 years building a team to take on and beat the best teams in the league. And then 4 years later, the man who I'm afraid crashed down with City. He's Alan Dix. And because of Alan, 4 memorable seasons in the First Division for City when they flexed their skills against the league's most famous clubs and Britain's best players, and Alan Dix was creating his own record. After 13 years in the job, he became easily the longest-serving one-club manager in the whole of the Football League. Alan Dix, welcome. They'll never be able to take that away from you, will they? 13 seasons.
No, that's the most enjoyable time in my life. A third of my working life, when you look back at it. And reaching the First Division was what it was all about. That's what that goal was all about.
Indeed, Alan. What days indeed they were at Ashton Gate then. Cheerleaders on the touchline, drum majorettes, huge and excited crowd, bigging on for the club, and above all, some marvellous footballing moments. Yes, there was the hunger of a 65-year gap since First Division football had been in the West Country. Yes, and there was talent on and off the field. And he turned back.
Richie. It's there. Tom Ritchie has scored. Garland up well. That's the goal for Peter Cormack. They're trying to vary their approach. Hunter knocking it in. In goes Babbage. Oh, a brilliant effort there by young Babbage. Rimmer wants his defence to calm down. Babbage. Good cross. Royal's got Ritchie behind him. The chance for Gow. And it's there. A beautifully worked goal with Jerry Gow getting his first goal of the season. Man behind. Also Hunter. Plenty of variation for Bristol. It's for Hunter. And it's a lovely goal. Extremely well taken by Norman Hunter. Brings him his third goal of the season. Sweeney. Ritchie, but Coop in there quickly, and Ritchie always ready to have another go. And there's a chance here for Joe Royal. And he's scored.
Whitehead taking them on, the cross in. It's a good one, Babbitt. Made the space for the goal. Yes! And didn't he take that well?
All these years later, Alan, what do these pictures evoke for you?
Well, lots of very good memories, but the standard of what we got to when you see the First Division football, and someone like Tommy Ritchie knocking that goal shows you he was always in there where the place where he got hurt, he got knocked down, but he kept going, he would pick up the ball. Probably one of the unsung heroes of the team, but it's lovely to see it, and I look at it and I think, well, I was part of it, because you do tend to forget those sort of things.
Now you coach around the Mediterranean, the desert and places like that. When you're sitting in the desert there, do you find yourself thinking of these days?
Oh yeah, you look back at it and say, well, I wouldn't have done it that way at Bristol City, because you have to improvise. I mean, when people fall asleep in the afternoon when they should be at training, it's very difficult. So you have those problems. We never fell asleep at Bristol City, thank God. It was hard times, but we never fell asleep.
All right, Alan, you didn't indeed. At this stage, let's move on. Let's have a look at your career as a player and as a football manager. Alan Dix was born and raised in London. An early success in 1947 as a member of a youth team winning its age group in the South London Championships. Football, his passion, and 1949, more success and more trophies for the lad. National service in the early 1950s, Alan Dix in the Royal Air Force, once again on a winning side. The date, 1954. Signing as a professional, he was a midfield player with 3 clubs, first at Chelsea, later Millwall and Southend. Yes, the crowds were huge in those days, and Dix watches at a packed White Hart Lane as Len Dukman of Tottenham against Chelsea demonstrates that strikers could barge goalkeepers in those days. Dix in action at Stamford Bridge in the white shorts, challenging Dennis Wilshire of Wolves for the ball. In the action at Goodison Park, Dix watches as Reg Matthews is beaten by Derek Temple for an Everton goal in 1957. He served his management apprenticeship at Coventry City. 4 years there as assistant manager, learning from and being influenced by Jimmy Hill. Coventry's light blues set new trends in public relations and football presentation in the early 1960s, and they also had success on the field, moving all the way from the 4th Division up to the 1st. Things were taking off at Coventry and for Alan Dix. One of the young players he coached then was Bobby Gould, later to be signed by Alan for a record fee for Bristol City. That's Bobby, right of your frame there. By 1967, Alan ready for management on his own, and in October that year, he becomes the most expensive employee at Ashton Gate, City's new manager at £80 a week. Alan, I can remember you now screeching into the car park down from Coventry to get that job, but you got it, the directors gave you your chance. You were a young man in a hurry, weren't you?
Yeah, it was to be my first appointment as manager, and I was looking forward to getting on with it. And you just want to get there and start the thing rolling.
What did you say to the directors when you came down for the job?
Well, it was really all done on the telephone, and Jimmy Hill was leaving Coventry at that stage, and believe it or not, I was at a match at Reading, and who was sitting in front of me, unbeknown to me, was a very great man, Fred Ford, who just left Bristol City. Yeah. And he turns around and says, "Alan, how are you?" Shook my hand, and then says, "By the way, you're getting the Ashton Gate job." And I looked, because in fairness to Fred, he still had a lot of people involved in Bristol City, a lot of friends, because no one could dislike Fred Ford. I don't care who he was, because he's such a great guy. But he was the first one to tell me I got the job. So, yeah, it was, and I was then saying, oh, and then I got telephone calls, and of course you come down to really sign and settle those things.
It must be a great, nervous business. There you are, and you're in charge now, mate. It's not Jimmy Hill to lean on. You've got to pick the team, and of course, let's look back to those days now, because you really faced an immense uphill task when you arrived at Ashton Gate. City were facing the very real threat of relegation to the 3rd Division, you remember. They'd got only 3 points from their first 8 Second Division matches. They just lost 5-0 at home to Everton in the League Cup. New players were needed, Alan.
We've got to avoid relegation, but it's a hard work. And this is what I'm saying about our method. We must improve our methods and attack the game in the right spirit, but we are still very much in a position at the bottom of the table. We've got to improve this.
We continually hear there is enough money here to buy very good players. Is there enough money for you to buy 3 or 4 good ones?
Well, we need to bring 3 players, I feel, to add to our first team force. If we want to get out first, we want to get out of the relegation, then we've got to springboard there to try and get into the 1st division, or get into the 1st division, not try. We're going to get there.
Sharp moves well, and it's there! Alan Sturton makes the score 2-1 with 2 minutes to go before half-time.
Back to Kellard.
Galley goes up, gets it. Chance for Sharp, blocked by Burrows. It's a goal! Jerry Sharp has scored! Jerry Sharp has equalised for Bristol City after 23 minutes. Sturton is causing so much trouble. He's giving Heslop 5-yard start and beating him. Sharp, a great goal! A marvellous goal by Jerry Sharp. Sturton made it with the right wing break. Jerry Sharp made no mistake with a tremendous volley.
Garland. Sharp.
Garland again.
Bush.
There it is! A magnificent goal by Chris Garland. Broomfield's on the end of it. Holding it on nicely. He's got Garland outside his Galley. It's a great goal! A marvellous goal by John Galley.
Football managers are unique. They buy and sell human beings, Alan. You've done a lot of it. What's the secret?
Well, obviously you're looking to improve the team all the time. You've really got to say, I believe in that person to come and do a job.
Hey, one of those guys you bought there, John Galley, you bought him when he had a bad leg. I remember him coming in here on crutches.
That was a lovely story, because he came, he went into a class, he had Achilles tendon, sinusitis in his tendon. Yeah? And because I took him into the club and told the directors he couldn't play in his first game. And I always remember the chairman then, Harry Dolman, saying, and as I walked away, he said, he's bought a cripple. But he showed that in the next game when the plaster came off. He scored 3 goals at Huddersfield.
I know, marvellous.
And it is about, I mean, you don't just buy a player, by the way. You look into his background, and we had kind of a little MI5 system where we would find out their character.
Yeah.
Did they get to bed early, or were they out late, and do they want to play, and have they got... Because you must do it. You try to do this. Because, in fairness, you spend the club's money, and you don't just go, I must get a player. You look into it, and we had to do it that way, because the players we bought had to do the job.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Harry Dolman, though, one of the directors, of course, and, of course, a big turning point in your career when you were about to get the sack. During those second division days, we understand, was when you went to Leeds United in the FA Cup. Was it the FA Cup? And beat one of the great sides, Don Revers, Leeds United, away from home.
Trying the through ball. Ritchie leaving it for Fear. He rode one tackle from Bremner. He's having to wait for support. A mixed up again. 3 of them. Oh, it's there! It is there!
I mean, that goal saved your job, didn't it?
Certainly did. I was really even for the chop at that stage. It got to a stage where the league performances weren't going well. But they say you're only as good as your last game, and that game was a good one, because that was one of the best results we had, or I had at Bristol City with the boys. And they deserved it. We fought like Custard's last stand, actually. We never got out of the penalty box, because we were playing one of the best sides, probably in the world at that time. With Leeds and Liverpool were the 2 biggest sides. And to go there, and I always remember going back to Leeds and saying to Don Levy, don't forget the tickets, because we'd drawn at Ashton Gate. And he said, don't problem, man. I mean, he said, we won't get a big crowd. And of course, the 3-day week produced time for people to see the game. Yeah. The gates were closed, no tickets, and it must have angered the lads, because they went on and put a great performance on.
A magic moment, the great unpredictability of football, and that unpredictable result saved you in your job. And eventually your second division team, Alan, good enough to win promotion that magic night, Tuesday night, 1976. Clive Whitehead scores the only goal. It puts Portsmouth down to Division 3. It puts Bristol City up into the First Division after that 65-year wait. The scenes at Ashton Gate that night will always be remembered by the excited crowd packing the stadium, and by Harry Dolman and Robert Hobbs, the chairman who had worked alongside Alan Dix over the previous 9 years. They shared the joy with the fans, the players, and above all, manager Alan Dix.
And it is one of the most marvellous moments of my life that we are moving forward.
Well, I believe they dumped you in the bath, the players, didn't they, that night, Alan?
Yeah, I was still clutching a bottle of champagne and enjoying every moment of it, which I think all the football public in Bristol did as well.
Look at those celebrations, eh?
Oh, it's lovely. It's a pity it can't happen more in our town, because I'm now a Bristolian by choice.
Yes.
I shall stay here. And seeing all those scenes reminds me of all the very magical moments when you get promotion.
Okay, now, you're a bit of an expert now in management. What are the magic ingredients for building a side that wins promotion?
A little bit of luck. Let's get that right. You need luck sometimes for players to be available you bring in, for young players to develop, because you don't just put a yardstick on a player developing into a player. It could take 1 year with one player, it might take 3. So we had time there to develop our players, and we had a lot of young players come through. But you make your mind up what you want. You've got to get balance within the team. We had pace, we had flair, we had big boys. We got people up front, both Cheesley and John Galley, who were tall. Speed in areas.
Youngsters like Garland and Ritchie.
That's right.
Merrick came into the side.
You cannot say it happened then. You build it. It was all right. You buy sides at the moment. You buy very good players, and you pay a lot of money for them. It doesn't mean to say you're going to get the success. Manchester United proved that over the years. Only one First Division championship. We had to build a side at Bristol City, and not only me, all the staff I had. I mean, it just doesn't come down to politics. There's lots of staff. There's Tony Collins, Ken Windsor moved from player to coach, and all those players, all those people played a big part in building Bristol City.
All right, Alan, let's remind ourselves of the First Division side you built, those marvellous First Division scenes.
Here. Cormac, and that one's in. Another chip from Keith Beer, and Peter Cormac makes no mistake. Whitehead into the box. A good little centre, and that's a goal! A wonderful goal by Kevin Lovett. indirect free kick against Dave Thomas. Hunter, and what a goal! Well, what a tremendous goal by Norman Hunter.
Sights there of the team you built in the first division. You brought the Joe Royals, the Norman Hunters, the Peter Cormacks. Now, how did you persuade these international guys to come here to the sleepy old West Country?
Well, it did look good when I was looking at it. Well, it took, well, obviously, our professional people. The club backed me and produced money. And you don't get top players without paying, one, the fees and the salary. And there's a springboard to that because the salaries went up and therefore the money went up. And, but bringing them to Bristol City, we worked very hard to do it and sold the idea of playing for Bristol. And when they got here, they enjoyed it.
Did you find them more difficult to handle than the younger players you brought up yourself? These were established men.
Well, a lovely story of Norman Hunter. In fact, I played golf at St. Pierre recently and met him. I can't remember his surname, but he was the manager of the Labrador. And I went up there and had, under a different name, booked in the hotel. And Norman walked in, and within 30 minutes, because my ploy was to say to a player, what do you want? Not to say, we will give you, and puts the onus on him to say, and people tend to stutter. They say, well, how much shall I ask for? So
what did Norman want?
He said, I want X, Y, Z. I said, you've got it. But unfortunately, and this is the thing, they have agents, or solicitors, or lawyers, and 7 days later we were still talking, and we finally reached the point when Norman signed for Bristol City. But it was a point where I think he, out of all the players we brought to Bristol City, gave us real standing while he was at Bristol City.
Should the first division days have gone on longer then?
Yeah, if we could have kept players. If we could have kept certain players, we would have done. And if we hadn't had tragic injuries too. We lost key players and we couldn't replace them.
Yes, indeed, as we know, things did in fact go wrong. Alan, City were relegated, you were sacked, and the club very nearly died. Ashton Gate said goodbye to First Division football against Norwich, April the 26th, 1980. 16,000 fans turned up, but City still went down 3-2. Next season, down to the Second Division. Alan Dix was sacked after only 7 matches. 4 draws and 3 defeats in Division 2. The board blamed him publicly for not operating a more vigorous buying and selling policy. Still smiling, he bowed out of Bristol football, his 13th season at Ashton Gate. But City's decline went on. Relegation for the club down to Division 3, then the 4th Division basement, and off the field, City's affairs were even more depressing. They were bankrupt. Outside football, the company would have gone into liquidation, but a rescue package was worked out. It involved 8 players, though, agreeing to tear up lucrative contracts. The eyes of the whole football world were on City as the controversial details were flashed out, and a new club, Bristol City 1982 Limited, took over. There they are, the Ashton Gate 8, the famous Ashton Gate 8, Pete Rakin, Jeff Merrick, with the Archie Gooch, the then chairman, and worried faces from the Football Union coming to Bristol. Alan, it was really epic days. You've gone, though. That wasn't your part. But what was your part was the board did say you should have bought and sold more vigorously after being relegated to Division 2. Alan, now's your chance to answer them.
Well, the answer is no, because you keep good players. I mean, the answer about giving long-term contracts or getting players, you're trying to improve it. And I didn't want to sell Tom Riches and the Jerry Gowns, who were really the backbone of our promotion period. And I still felt they were good enough to get us back.
Yeah, but the board were panicking, Alan. The public were panicking. Don't you have to go with them a bit and give them what they want?
Well, I suppose I got dogmatic and said, I know these players. I want them. I wanted to bring other players in and sell off other players, which were not so important as I felt to us getting back into the... And we were looking to get back in the First Division. We'd come down, other clubs had done. We didn't have the money. The bank had asked the board of directors to put more personal loans in, because I was very much involved with the board meetings. And unfortunately, the directors at that stage couldn't see their way to doubling money they
Big
put in,
money,
which would have been 180,000, I believe, at that stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did say, you have to sell players. I said, well, wait a minute, we're only into the start of the season. And I did say, let's give it to Christmas to see out the results.
They run out of patience, don't they, football directors,
That's
sometimes?
right, yeah.
Eh?
And they get a bit, I suppose they get a lot of pressure from the crowd. Their mates or friends in their clubs and wherever they go are saying, well, what's happening to Dick? You've had him long enough. And I wasn't everyone's favourite manager. A few of those people in that outlet, the old chicken run down the bottom there, used to give me a few reminders of what they thought of me. But in the main, I'm sure the Bristol football public was behind me trying to get that side back into the first
They
division.
enjoyed the 4 years. We all enjoyed the 4 years. The big question, Alan, is can the club get back? Can a West Country club get back to the First Division in these high-spending days?
Well, it's got to be, let's look at Watford, how they did it. There's not many Elton Johns around. You've got to have people who are prepared to put their money where their mouths are. I mean, a bank will loan so much. And I suppose at Bristol City now, that the directors are frightened to move into overdraft with what they've had in their recent history. So they have to have someone who's prepared, as I think Robert Hobbs was in his day, to put up his great business in Bristol to be collateral, so to speak. And
They've got to go into, you've got to speculate to accumulate. You must take risks. They're in the risk business. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and the club's got to be lucky to find youth players in Bristol that do come from there. I mean, we've got a lovely area to live in. I like it. But it's casual. It's loose, and people are not hard, and you haven't got the aggressive. I'm not talking about people who want to punch someone on the nose. I'm talking about the person who wants to go and win and knows he's got to work hard to come and get to the top. And sometimes that's missing in the Bristol boys. There are a lot of good ones, don't get me wrong. But that's why I've got a lot of Scots boys, as you know. I mean, the Jerry Gowers of this world, I think all the Bristol City supporters will say, what a player. Good man to have on your side and a bad one to have against you.
And now you're earning your living, Alan, and let's move on finally. Now you're earning your living around the Mediterranean, in the desert, or Cyprus, Greece. How do you like that?
Well, I enjoy the weather. It's better in this country, especially the weather we had this summer. But no, I enjoy it. But the people are fanatic, and it's lovely. The Mediterranean climate produces people who want to be with their football club, and they're fanatical. Not so much money, but I enjoy it.
You've got to be back here, I think.
I would love the opportunity to come back and do English football.
Alan Dix, it's been wonderful to talk to you about the wonderful days at Bristol City. The man who built up Bristol City, brought First Division football, but then couldn't hold it more than 4 years. But the 4 years were valuable. Nice to talk to you, Alan. Thank you very much indeed. And we'll be back next week with another Flashback for the fans. That's for you. See you then.